What are the non-negotiable lifts? Like if we're talking about, just for lack of a better modifier, like traditional lifts, the stuff that you could do, that people could do if they walk down to a good neighborhood gym. Are there any things for you that you're like, all right, this is kind of, these are some of the ingredients in my multivitamin. It's just like I take the multivitamin every week. That's how it works. A couple of movements.
The first one would be a sled. The reason why I say sled is because it is something that grandma can do, and it's something that the NFL linebacker can do. And it can be progressed or regressed to either level while causing probably, most likely, no issue to either. The reason why I mentioned the sled before I mentioned something like a barbell back squat or a barbell deadlift is because some people, when it comes to direct actual spinal compression, where the barbell is right here, they just can't handle forms of that compression when moving through space yet.
I mean, I probably shouldn't handle it, frankly, right? Like I've been doing back squats, but there's definitely part of me that's like, homie, this is not a good idea.
This is the thing, though. I think there are many forms of squatting one can do. Like we talked about sandbag squats. That's not actual loaded. That actually feels really good, right? Because the weights in front of you are holding it. They feel safe. They feel good. They can be progressed. But the sled is something that you can load that thing up. And if it doesn't move, you just don't have the ability to produce the force to push or pull it through space. I wish everyone would be able to work with a sled because it's so safe and has such a huge ability to be progressed or regressed to any level safely for literally everyone. That's why I'm starting there. Louis Simmons was someone who, he was the owner of Westside Barbell. He passed.
Legendary.
Louis is the one who got Mark, and Mark introduced the sled to me. And it's just like, the sled is powerful. So unfortunately, it's hard for some people to have that at home. I have a torque sled at my house. It's this tank sled that you can wheel around.
So the torque sled, it's not on skids. It's on wheels with like mechanical resistance?
Yes. They came out with a new one that I have. I forgot its model, but it's one that you can literally swivel around. So you've seen the tanks where you have to push it, then you have to get to the other side and push. This one, you can push, swivel and turn and push. It looks like a little Batmobile. It's pretty sick.
Cool. Does that allow you to pull as well or only push?
It allows you to pull as well. You can hook a cable to it and then you could also push and pull it. It has magnetic resistance, so you can increase the resistance so that the harder you push, the more resistance it gives you. So it can build to any level of resistance. I have my mom who's 67. I have her come to my place so that she can do the sled multiple times a week. That's why I have her come, because it's something she can do and progress without pain. So if people can just get themselves to a place that has a sled, it's a full body movement from the feet to the hands.
What does a sled workout look like? Or where does it integrate into a workout?
A sled can be a very meaty part of your workout if you learn to like it. The reason why I say learn to like
that exhale says so much. If you like swallowing broken glass, I have a piece of equipment for you.
The sled could be a good first 2-3 minutes to get the knees warm when you're moving forward and backwards, or it could be a very metabolically taxing strength building workout that you can do for 20 minutes to get your heart rate up while also increasing your ability to produce force. When you're pushing a sled, your heart rate will spike, your whole body will go on fire because you're starting from your feet to produce force forward and pulling backwards. So it'll spike the heart rate, but everything will start to get sore. Your feet, your glutes especially, when you're learning how to stack your body against that weight, like you'll see it in people who are new on the sled, some of them aren't familiar with getting their body in the right position to produce force forward.
They're too upright.
They're too open. The system's very open, like so upright. You mentioned, right? So some people, they'll start pushing a sled. Their ribs will be in this flared forward position. Their pelvis won't be in a neutral position. It'll be like tilted back and they'll try pushing. They can't produce much force.
Just to paint a picture for folks, if you imagine a sled, all right, so it's a sled, like a toboggan with weights on top of it.
Yeah.
But what you're holding on to, imagine you have like 2 subway poles in front of you that are like, I don't know, 18 inches apart, 24 inches apart. Those are vertical. You're holding onto those, one with your left hand, one with your right hand, and then you're pushing that.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're talking about like the body position, because this is going to be one of my follow-up questions, is like, what is your preferred position for pushing a sled?
Yeah.
Like, are you bent 90 degrees at the hips, staring at the ground with your head in line with your arms as if you were doing like an overhead press? Is it, I don't know, like 20 degrees off of parallel to the ground with the upper body? Like, what does it look like? Because I've wondered about this because I got a sled based on, actually, I think it's Mark Bell, who I owe thanks for this, a very early, like Stone Age version of something like the Torque sled.
Was it from Torque or was it another company?
I think it was another company. It was like XPro or something like that. I can't recall. Sorry, guys, that I'm butchering it. But the challenge with that for me always was, it was like, God, I love this like hip extension and like glute engagement. And if I'm not careful, I feel in my low back. So that's what I need to account for. Like I would love to get back into sled, but I would love to hear your thoughts on just like avoiding probably too much flaring and like pointing my titties at the ceiling.
Yeah.
It's an exaggeration. We get the idea, guys. If you're like kind of arching your back unnecessarily, and it's a simplification. So what would your prescription be?
Level 1 for the sled would be learning how to create a neutral system when pushing the sled through space. So you're inherently going to come forward a little bit. You're not going to be vertical when pushing. You're going to be leaning forward a little bit, but you need to make sure that your rib cage is over your hips. So it's like two bowls pouring into each other. When we were mentioning this open system flared, I know some people aren't watching the podcast, your rib cage would be...
Yeah, flared. Imagine if you had a foam roller. You put a foam roller right below your shoulder blades, and then you you basically bent your upper back to like bring your head closer to the ground.
Yes.
Like that would be flaring, right?
So you cannot produce a lot of force when you have this flared system.
It's super common, by the way. People who think they don't do this, take videos of yourself doing very varied exercises. It is so common.
It's extremely common. Another issue is maybe having, this is a little bit less common, but too much flexion, right? So too much bending when trying to push, right? You want to be in a neutral position, a strong neutral position where your rib cage is right above your hips.
So can you explain that to me? Because rib cage over my hips makes me think that I need to be upright.
All you want to think about is like, for example, the neutral position that we think about when we're squatting down, that rib position. Let's now angle the body forward while maintaining that rib position and pushing the sled.
Got it.
That's all it is. That's going to be the position that allows us to be able to produce the most force while moving forward. Now, for some people, when it comes to like the upper part of the spine, let me also mention this. This is the level 1 pushing and pulling position that we want our rib cage in. Because for me, when I want people to progress what they do with the sled, it's a very powerful tool to allow you to push and pull in different spinal positions. So you start off by pushing and pulling the sled with a neutral spine.
Yeah.
Then you can start to push and pull the sled laterally. So like the sled is here, you're pushing the sled laterally, you're pulling the sled laterally while maintaining a fairly neutral spine. But then over time, the strength that you can get with the sled is that when you push the sled, you can push with more spinal flexion when you become more comfortable. So you can learn to produce force with spinal flexion. And then you can learn to, when you're pulling the sled, you can learn to almost Jefferson curl pull the sled in deep spinal flexion. You don't start here, but when you become comfortable, and you've been doing this with very lightweight initially, you can be comfortable pulling this load with deep spinal flexion. That's later on. And that's, for me, where the sled has become super powerful, because what my goal is for myself and what I've done is I became very strong pushing and pulling a sled with a neutral spine. Then I pushed and pulled with spinal extension, purposefully putting myself in this position while pulling and pushing. I pushed and pulled in deep spinal flexion, right? So that I could become very strong in this spinal position. I push and pull in deep lateral flexion. So I'll literally push the sled here with lateral flexion of the spine.
That's so scary for me to watch.
I'll pull the sled here with deep lateral flexion on the other side, so that I can strengthen all of the positions of my spine with this implement. This isn't something you're able to do with the barbell. You could do spinal flexion, Jefferson curl stuff. You can do some lateral stuff, but the sled allows you to produce force on an object forward, backward, and to the side with that intent of movement.
When you are pulling, how are you pulling? And that sounds dumb, but do you have ropes attached to the sled? Like with the Torque sled?
Yeah.
How are you pulling it?
So the torque sled, there's two ways that I'm pulling. When I want to get into deep flexion, I have this thing. It's something that Mark made. It's called a shake strap. So it's this strap that you're able to, it's kind of like a cable attachment that you can put on a machine, but you can also put the sled. And I loop my hands through it, right? So my hands are here, and then I'll let my back bend, and then I'll start walking backwards in deep spinal flexion with that pulling me, right? So it's like, if you can imagine
I can imagine like you reach through a hole and then grab it and it's sort of
it's right there,
wrapped around the wrist.
And literally, when I'm going backwards, I'm in this position while moving backwards.
Yeah.
I'm in this deep spinal flexion
What
position.
about like off the rack white belt version?
Neutral spine?
Neutral
That's why
spine.
I said,
right, but are you using the...
you
what
can
is it
use
called?
either the sled attachment, that whatever sled you're using, or most sleds have something that you can hook onto. And then you can place that attachment and you can still push and pull with a neutral spine.
I got it. What does Mark call that?
It's called a shake strap.
Shake strap.
Yeah.
And he sells those somewhere,
presumably.
presumably.
Everything that I've talked about, I put it all in a place called the strongerhuman.store. It's a website, so all this equipment is there. But you can also find this at his website, which I believe is markbellslingshot.com.
Yeah.
So for the sandbags and everything, I mentioned ropes, it's at the strongerhuman.store.
I was in the middle of nowhere, Italy, and I went to this gym, this tiny gym, and there was a slingshot there, and I took a photo and I sent it to Mark.
Those things are everywhere. They're everywhere. That's one of the cool things about that. Like you'll see them in the most random gyms. But when it comes to that, the basic version of the sled that mom and dad can do, older people, younger people, everyone can do, push and pull with a neutral spine and learn how to produce force. Slowly increase the load. When you feel comfortable, start introducing a little bit of play in your spine. But when you introduce this play in your spine, don't move the spine out of that position when pushing and pulling.
And probably drop the load.
Absolutely drop the load. It needs to be light. But when you, let's say, for example, you start exploring with a little bit of spinal flexion when pulling the sled, you get into that spinal flexion, the sled is really light, you start pulling backwards, you're breathing, you're not holding your breath. Your body learns, hey, this is actually a good position for us to produce a little bit of force in.
Yeah.
We're strong here, right? Versus when most people get in that position, there's a breath hold, it feels unsafe, something gets pulled. So for me now, the only reason I was able to progress this was because I worked on those regressions. And when a lot of trainers maybe see some of this, they're like, that's unsafe. Just wait a few years. You're going to blow your back out. Like, no, I'm not going to hurt myself because my body knows that this is a good, resilient position to be in. I'm not afraid of this position.